so that you will embolden us to do what is right in your sight. I ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Secretary, can you please call the witness?
Good morning, Mr. Witness. Please sit down. Mr. Witness, as a matter of routine, may I still remind you that you are under oath. So for continuation of our proceedings, I'm now yielding the floor to Madam Chair. Madam Chair, over to you.
You are welcome. Council, can we proceed?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Welcome, Honorable Commissioners. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I believe we were discussing the review for the year ending 31st December 2019.
Yes.
Good. Can you please turn to the page that we stopped yesterday? I think it's page 27, where we were discussing the findings.
Yes.
Are you there already?
Not yet. I'm getting there.
So whilst you are trying to figure out the page, may I just briefly read out the first issue. So it is in relation to the procurement of soakaway digging for the fish market. Now, the amount is $59,910. The contractor is 140 Madi Kunda Constructions. You will see that the method used is request for quotation RFQ. The non-compliance issues that you raised while you were doing this review is that, number one, that there was no minute of the contracts committee. In effect, there was no approval of this project. And the second one is that there was no delivery receipt to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated.
Right.
Are you there now?
Yes.
And you have the third one, that there was no procurement documentation. There was no inspection committee, and there were no detailed specifications. There was no evaluation report among documents provided for the to the reviewers. So basically, I think we have discussed this briefly yesterday,
yes,
where you have this entire procurement being conducted without following any of the relevant requirements as provided for by law.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Again, you have the procurement of maintenance on page 28. Maintenance and spare parts of for Manzakonko Area Council. What is the amount that you have on your records?
Which page is it?
Page 28.
Page 20.
The amount is about $109,750. Do you see it? We were on page 27. Now you just move to the next page. So the amount is $169,750. The contractor is S1 Motors. The method used is RFQ. Are you there?
Can you give me just few minutes because it seems as if I am on a different thing.
Do you have a hard copy? 2019. Madam Chair, do we have an extra copy, photocopy with respect to the 2019 compliance review? Yes.
So is the procurement of maintenance and spare parts?
Yes.
Yes. And the amount is 169,750.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the contractor is S1 Motors.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And the method used?
A request for quotation.
Yes. So what were the non-compliance findings?
There was no minutes of the contracts committee to approve the
Yes.
procurement as stipulated in regulations 28 and so on. There was no delivery receipt to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated in section 35 of the GPPA Act. The procurement item or the procured item was not indicated in the procurement plan as stipulated in the regulations 25(1) of the GPPR and section 29 of the GPPA Amendment Act. There was no procurement documents such as GPPA reporting form 012 were not attached as stipulated.
In fact, the findings are exactly the same with the earlier findings.
Yes.
So no, in summary, all the rules were not being followed.
Right.
Now you turn to page 29, where 27,650 was spent on goods, that is the procurement of flat screen TV. Now the contractor is one B Electrical Enterprise.
Right.
Through RFQ. Now again, this transaction or this procurement was not approved by the contracts committee. And so again, you don't have any delivery receipt or note as well, no documentation to back up this procurement, just as similar with respect to the other ones we have already dealt with.
Yes.
No inspections committee, no detailed specification, no evaluation report, no delivery receipt. So what we have is, like I keep on saying, money is being spent purportedly to procure goods or services, but then you don't even have any documentation to back up any procedure that's been followed.
Right.
On page 30, $3,000 was spent for the second-hand pump maintenance, and the contractor is EDS Solar Goods through single sourcing. Now the non-compliance issues, the first is the procurement item was not specified on the procurement plan. There was no delivery receipt as stipulated. There was no inspections committee, no evaluation report, documentation was incomplete. Again, so we turn to page 31. Where spare parts were being procured. Do you see it?
Yes, yes.
What is the amount that you have on your?
$16,140.
And the supplier?
EDS Solar Goods.
And the method?
Single source.
So yes, so please run us through the non-compliance findings.
The procured item was not specified on the procurement plan as stipulated in regulations 25(1) of the GPPR and Section 29 of the GPPA Amendment Act. The procurement method was above the threshold as stipulated in Section 38 and 45 of the GPPA Act. There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GPPA Act 2018. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in Regulation 133 to 136. There was no evaluation report, and documentation was incomplete because there was no attachment of goods receipt and delivery notes to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GPPA Act.
Now, again, if you see page 31 with respect to the compliance, you will see that the first point, when you said the purchase order was raised by the end user department.
Yes.
Now, but then do you know who completed this purchase?
No, the name was not mentioned by the team that reviewed.
Ordinarily, will the team that reviewed this procurement have or be shown evidence as to who purchased these items?
Well, sometimes in our reports we do mention the person who raised the purchase order or whatsoever, but in this case I think they just generalize the findings and the name is not indicated.
Now turn to page 33.
Sorry, Council.
Yes.
Mr. Sanyang, under the non-compliance section, you've indicated that the council did not, that the procurement method was above the threshold as stipulated in Section 38 and 45 of the GPPA Act. But looking at what Section 38 said, I believe there is also here a wrong referencing of the relevant section of the law.
Yes, I think we noted this and we...
No, we did not. We are noting this one now.
This
today.
other one,
yes.
Yeah. I think
Today.
we had a series of inconsistencies which are really noted by the review team and the authors of the various reports. And we have taken note, and obviously when we go back, we'll try to at least do what we can do at our level. We have to put our house in order.
Yes. But it is important that when we are running you through the evidence of the report you have written, we should be able to highlight and you confirm to us that it is a wrong referencing so that we can have that in our evidence.
Yeah.
We are not going to gloss over any error or mistake or omission that you have done in your report.
Okay.
I think you get that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And can we look at section also 45? Also, I believe that section 45 is also wrongly cross-referenced. It's not the applicable section that you ought to have used. All right? We can, Council, you can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Now turn to page 33. Cartridge and A4 paper was purchased for $10,000.
Yes.
Now, from one Ibrahim Asedi, through request for quotation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So again, the non-compliance issues. First, you wrote that there was no minute of the contracts committee to approve the procurement as stipulated. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the second one?
There was no delivery receipt to show that the procurement was completed as stipulated in Section 35(2) of
The
the
third?
GPPA Act.
Yes.
The procured item was not indicated in the procurement plan as stipulated in Regulation 25(1) of the GPPR and Section 29 of the GPPA Amendment Act. There was no procurement documentation such as GPPA Form 040, 102, and 012 were not attached as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the GPPA Amendment Act 2018. There was no inspection committee to inspect the goods as stipulated in Section 133 to 136 of the GPPR. There was no detailed specifications in Form 101. There was no evaluation report by the contracts committee. There was no delivery receipt as stipulated in Section 35(2) of the Gambia Public Procurement Act 2018, and no evaluation criteria on the solicitation document sent to the suppliers.
So on page 34, so spare parts were procured. The amount is $17,000
Yes.
through single sourcing. Now, if you look at the non-compliance findings,
Yes.
each of them is similar to the ones we have read prior, but then the one that draws my interest is the first finding, where it was written that purchase order was not raised by the end user departments as stipulated in the regulation. Now, what is the significance of this finding?
Now, if according to the Act, is the responsibility of the end user to indicate what he or she wanted and then raised a purchase order in that manner. So if it is done by a different person, it means that probably it is not right, that they don't even need it, or is being imposed upon the person, or it may even suggest that the item that is being raised may not fit the purpose, because it's only the end user who can determine exactly what the item being purchased is meant for.
Or in fact, in this case, would it not also probably suggest that, in fact, this amount of money, $17,000, was not even spent to purchase any item, for this case, spare parts, because, number one, not only do you not have a purchase order, but then you don't have evidence of even an item being procured throughout. If you look at the findings, for example, there is no procured.
Even
please?
the list can go on and on, because
Yes.
The fact that no receipt was not even given may suggest that probably the item was not even delivered.
Yes.
So-
So why it is interesting is, in other instances, we will see that in almost all the cases, we have discussed that there will be purchase order raised. Probably that will be the foundation to conduct any fraudulent activity or misappropriation or misprocurement. You may think that since I have a purchase order, now I can go and procure XYZ item. Then you will now flout the other rules and then make probably interest from whatever you are purchasing. But in this case, not only do you have the violation of the other rules, like no inspections committee team, no examination team, or acceptance committee, no delivery note or item, but you don't even have a purchase order to even warrant the purchase of a particular item in the first place. So why do you spend $17,000? Like, on what do you spend it for? And why do you even remove it from council coffers, financial accounts, just to probably put it in your own pocket?
Actually, the question is yes, why, but again, how? Because on normal circumstances, approval should not have been given to any document that is raised, including the signature of the signing the checks for withdrawals and so on. Because before you append, or someone appends a signature for money to be withdrawn, like I said the first day, there must be a checklist. There are things that you have to verify to ensure that they are in place. So that, in short, the documentation must be correct and complete before even a check is raised and even a voucher is raised.
Yes.
So in the absence of all this, like we said, how or why, but the other question is how. How was the check raised and all the other documentations, including the vouchers and so on?
Now, they only complied with Form 100. What is Form 100? I know you have already time and again explained. What is Form 100?
Actually, Form 100 is the national requisition.
Yes.
Now, when we talk about national requisition, sometimes institutions may have their own internal memos to request for something, but then even if an internal memo or an internal request is raised, it is mandatory that this GPPA Form 100, which is the national requisition, is raised. Now, this is a requisition which is raised to show that the procurement, of course, is on the procurement plan. It is approved by the accounting officer on behalf of the contracts committee. Now, the budgetary officer, probably the director of finance and the like, must also indicate that funds are available and is budgeted for. And finally, the procurement officer will also sign to indicate that all procedures and processes in terms of procurement are all fulfilled. So Form 100 is very important, is the national requisition.
So in this case, what will you say? Is it the case that they only attach the form without filling the form? Because as per the language of, you said the procurement documentation such as Form 100 and receipt was only attached as stipulated. So they didn't talk about whether it was complied with, whether it was filled, and so on and so forth. You only say that the form itself was attached. I don't know what that means. Can you please help us to that?
What I assume is, apart from these two forms, all other forms were not attached.
Okay. Now,
sorry. Mr. Sanyang, it is provided for in your legislation that aside from open tender and procurement of consultant services or other methods, whichever method a PO is adopting, it must state why it is adopting that method. So if the legislation is providing for that, during the course of your review, have you seen any reason been proffered for using the methods that they are using in the procurement of their goods and services?
No, because as per the submissions, we have never mentioned that they have completed or also submitted minutes of the contracts committees, and as you can see in the non-compliance, it has not indicated anywhere that they have completed from, for example, the reporting forms. Now, all the procurement methods have reporting forms. For example, open tender, you have Form 001, which is the reporting form. You have restricted tender is 002, single source is 003, RFQ is 004. Now, if one is to go by or looked at these reporting forms carefully, it will, one, even the justification for the use of, for example, RFQ and single source, there is a portion for that. And for RFQs, even the basis for pre-qualification is also catered for. There is a portion where all this can be indicated. So if the forms are administered, then we can suggest that yes, they have their justifications and the like. But then if the documents where these things should have been justified are not even part of the submissions, then the conclusion is no, there has not been enough justification for the use of the procurement methods that they have been applied.
Now, the justification, is it the same as grounds? Grounds for choosing the method?
Yes, you can use the grounds because the grounds are laid down already. So if they are to justify, they will justify to say that yes, we are using single source because it is acceptable by section that which is provided for in the.
May I refer you, Mr. Sanyang, to section 45 of the Act, which talks about grounds for choice of procurement method used to be noted in record of proceedings. That is, let me take it again, grounds for choice of procurement method used to be noted in record of proceedings. That during the course of, your activity, and you've chosen a particular method of procurement, you must state the grounds upon which you have decided to use that particular. So my question was, during the course of your review, have you come across, these grounds been stated in their proceedings as to why they choose a particular method for?
Now, the grounds, like I said earlier, will either be indicated or should be indicated in the reporting forms, which are not available, or where a contracts committee must have sat and agree on something, based on something which, of course, must be documented. And at the end of the day, all members of the contracts committee must sign or append their signatures agreeing to the course of action. So if these two documents, where what we are talking about is not indicated, should have been indicated, are not submitted, then I wonder where the justification can come in.
Councillor, you may proceed.
Yes, so on page 35, the last point. The amount is $15,000 is the procurement of fuel from one Diba oil filling station, and it's through single sourcing. Again, in addition to not having the procurement good or item being part of the procurement plan, no delivery receipt, no evaluation report, among other findings, there is also no purchase order. You will see that on the first point, or the first finding. Do you see it?
Yes, no, under non-compliance.
Yes. And in 2019, the management did not bother to respond in relation to your findings in most of the cases.
Yes, like I said earlier, when we review, the first thing or what we do is to generate a draft report and send it to the procuring organization concerned with a timeline, expecting them to respond within the time frame. If they don't, we assume that the report is final and we finalize. So we proceed without the response.
Yes. Madam Chair, we have completed the review for the year ended 31st December 2019. Are there quick questions for the witness?
Yes, the commissioners have questions. Commissioner Jane.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Just a quick one. If the answer is not what I'm looking for. There would be a follow-up question. Do you at any time give approval after the event?
No, it's not allowed. That is what we call retroactive approval.
My question is, have you ever done it? Is it yes or no?
Yes, in some instances we do. Like if I can give an example. Like in Basse, there is an emergency that, of course, should be taken care of when life is at stake and so on. And if, for example, it happens even in a weekend when GPPA is not even working. So in that case, what do? They can proceed and then later, of course, communicate to the authority. But in cases like that, we just take the records but no approval because our law does not allow any retroactive approval.
But there are instances where that has been done for non-emergency situations.
If that is the case, I'm not aware, and it's not acceptable.
Okay, my other follow-up question is, how do you reference compliances? Because we have seen here a lot of doubts being raised as to your reports. Either it is cross-referencing, it's copy and paste, a lot of things. And yet still, these documents are circulated to the National Assembly, to the Audit Department, National Audit Office. Have they at any one time called your attention to some of these discrepancies that we have been hearing now?
Actually, I think your question, the first question is how do we reference?
Yes.
Now, based on our findings, we look at what part of the act is affected. And then our reference will intend to be in line with that section of the act which is being affected. That is always the intention. The issue of copy and paste cannot be ruled out completely. Why? Because if, for example, you look at Brikama Area Council, the first part of the report will be introduction and so on. It will talk about that part of the act that mandates the authority to conduct a report. So there will be a lot of things that, of course, will be similar. So obviously, naturally, the authors will feel that it's better to copy, paste, and work on that document. We agree that there are a lot of inconsistencies, as you have already seen. But the intention is always to make sure that you make references, and the references should be accurate by using certain parts of the act or sections of the act that are being affected. So this is it, we agreed. But now when it comes to the issue of other institutions probably drawing our attention to those inconsistencies, I don't think we have ever received anything from, let's say, the National Audit and so on, but then at the National Assembly, which is conducted like this other sitting, where honorable members will sit and scrutinize. Sometimes they will draw our attention to certain irregularities and so on.
Just to follow up, the inconsistencies of your cross-referencing, like what we have just said to you this morning, how do you deal with that? Because you have already published, it's been distributed, And some of these people might be subject to some scrutiny from those offices. And if you're saying to me, I'm looking at section 20 subsection 4, when it should be section 35, how do I get out from that problem? Because here, the chairperson have just said there's a wrong cross-reference, which you have agreed that you will go back and look at. But do you go back to those people that you have circulated these documents to say we made a mistake in our report, that it should not be section 20, it should be section 25, or it should be this? Do you go back to correct the errors that you have circulated?
Honorable Commissioner, me personally, I started coming here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today is Thursday. And you will agree with me that throughout we stay here up to around after 5. Each time such things are being pointed at, we take ownership and we accept the errors, and they will be taken note of. But your question of whether we've already gone back to institutions to tell them all what is being discovered and the like, I think the duration is too short for that, so that if I may analyze what you are talking about, is like immediately from these institutions, the highlighted issues can be taken care of. But if that is not the case, obviously we are taking note of whatever thing is being said here, and when we go back, like I said earlier, we'll go over them and we'll put our own house in order. Yes, we are always taking note of whatever is being raised here.
Now, putting your own house in order is one thing, but the reputational damage is another thing. Aren't you not concerned with the reputational damage of, let's say, Pasay Area Council?
Yeah, well, the citations may be wrong, but the facts remain the same.
Any other question?
Okay, Mr. Sanyang, I think the question is very simple. These are legal documents, and they should be legally binding. So therefore, if there are errors and omissions, it has to be rectified and recirculated. That is simple administration. That is what the commissioner is telling you that is to be done. You must have to withdraw these ones, because there are errors in it. Do the proper ones, and then you recirculate it. The fact still remains the same. But as you have said, please do it, and do it really well, and make sure that you put it there. It's for the records, it's for posterity, because other people will come after you. It's an institution, people go and people will come. So let's just do the right thing, have it done, recirculate it, and then withdraw these ones that have these errors. That's what the Honorable Commission is just saying.
Okay, noted, sir.
Mr. Sanya, we do appreciate that errors can be made when it's particularly people who are not landed in law, when they're trying to reference legislation. Sometimes they can, but just like you said, the referencing might be wrong, or there might be some mistakes, but the facts that you have found on the ground are what you found, right? Is that what you explained?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. So, can you please turn to the compliance review for the year ended 31st December 2020 to 2021? Just to say, I think some of these findings, it will probably be helpful to have your DG be present, because some are just too serious to, in fact, understand how certain basic errors can be made. Don't you guys have a legal department?
No,
You don't.
we don't.
Are you on the compliance review for 2020?
Yes,
2021?
yes.
Now, in the entry meeting,
Yes.
can you give us the list of the members for the area council, Masakonko?
One, Mr. C.D. Ture, Chief Executive Officer. Two, you have Mr. Landin B. Sane, the Chairman. Three, you have Baba Trawale, Procurement Officer.
Please speak through the microphone.
Okay. Four, you have Bai Gibi Salah, Finance Director. Mr. Ibrahim Sedili, Procurement Assistant. C.D. Sane, Accounts or Finance Manager. Lamin L.M. Mari, Director of Planning. Mfamara Sedi Khan, Council or Contracts Committee member. And then you have members of the GPPA review team.
So again, in the entry meeting, the chairperson or the chairman was present. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, how about the staffs involved in the review process? You will see it on page 6.
One, you have Mr. Baba Trawale and Ibrahim Sedili, who are all procurement officers. I have two, Mr. Bai Gibi Salah, who is the finance director, C.D. Ture, Chief Executive Officer, and Almamo Sise, Vice Chairman of Mansakongo Area Council.
So on page 6, you said in the findings that during the interview with the staff of SPU, we observed that interference in procurement process is very high. We further observed that the vice chairman of MKAC, that's Mansakongo Area Council, is the chairman to the contract, which will heavily affect the procurement operations, considering the volume of procurement transactions conducted daily, as he has no knowledge in public procurement. In addition, the team further observed that the SPU is under the finance department during the year under review. Do you see it?
Yes.
So these are your general findings. You know, sometimes in fact, most cases, you will divide your findings in two. The first part that we will deal with generally are the general findings. Is that not correct? And then you have the specific findings.
Yes.
Do you follow?
Yes.
Now, with respect to this general statement, the first issue is that a staff of the specialized procurement unit indicated to the team that interference in procurement is high in Mansakonko.
Yes.
So here you have a direct information by a member of the specialized procurement unit telling your team or your office that procurement in Mansakonko does not follow due process because there is interference.
Yes.
And the other point is the team observed that the vice chairman of Mansakonko Area Council is in fact the chairman to the contracts committee,
Right.
which you and I know that is not proper, because according to the laws, who should be the chairman of the contracts committee?
The CEO.
The CEO. And so, in addition to that, the issue of conflict of interest as well is being raised when you have the vice chairman of Mansakonko Area Council being the chairman of the contracts committee.
Right.
What are the issues raised in relation to that?
Now, actually, I think this narration even vindicate the argument.
The Honorable Commissioner, yes.
Because from the arguments, the word impose was mentioned, that we should not impose. Actually, GPPA or the authority will never impose. Now, members of the constitution of the...
Sorry, before you proceed, I just want you to clarify, because you said, according to the arguments yesterday, it was said that the GPPA imposed, you're making reference to the fact that it was stated yesterday.
Yes.
But if I may recollect, and I stand to be corrected, I believe that it was Honorable Joyner that was asking the question about the difference of the chairman of the committee and the chairman of the council itself. So at no point did I hear him say that it is the authority that imposes who is supposed to be the chairman, because it is your evidence and your testimony that there are 3 key personnel that are supposed to be in the contracts committee. So he wanted clarification on the issue of the chairman, whether the contracts committee chairman is the same as the chairman of the council, if I can get it right, because that was what the discussion was centered around yesterday. So, but what council is asking is that, you have confirmed now that according to the law, the chairman of the contracts committee is supposed to be the CEO and not the chairman of the council, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you. We may proceed.
Yes, so just briefly, now this finding is such that it would not be normal to have the vice chairman of an area council to be head of the contracts committee.
Yes.
The chairman.
Yes, the head will be the chairman, yes, the chairman of the contracts committee.
Yes.
So if you don't have the if the vice chairman would be really something that is really wrong, then ideally it would not be appropriate to have the chairman or any mayor or any mayoress to be the head of the contracts committee. Yes, so we will come to these issues in detail. Let's now...
Yes, may I ask?
Yes.
Yeah. If we can quickly go back to page 5, kindly confirm for us whether the names of those in attendance at the entry meeting were the same, because this report is covering the year 2020 and 2021. And we've not seen in the introductory notes whether the personnel that is highlighted here were the same personnel that were in 2020 who were the persons concerned vis-a-vis with the transactions of the council. So kindly confirm to us and kindly confirm also the members of the review team from GPPA, whether it is the same people that did the review for 2020 and 2021 respectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now
yes, before you proceed, and kindly avail us the assets disposal report, the approved budget for I believe also here at page 6 there are some mistakes, because what we can see, this is in reference to the key documents reviewed. If you look at it, it says it listed the key documents that were reviewed for the period under consideration, and you have indicated at page 6 that the approved budget of 2018 was part of those documents that were reviewed for 2020 and 2021. Did you see that?
That is supposed to be on page 6, where?
Yes. At
On the-
page 5, you have listed, and
Okay.
it flowed to.
Documents reviewed, yes.
You have the procurement plan, the
Yes.
requisitions, purchase. You have requests for quotations. You have contract agreements. You have mandatory reports to the authorities, such as monthly reports, annual single source procurements, and procurements above the threshold. Then you have the assets disposal report, and the last one is the approved budget for 2018.
18.
Did you see that?
Yes, yes, yes.
And what we are looking at is the compliance review for the period ending 31st December 2020 and 2021. So I think there is a mistake here.
Yes, I think it's a mistake, but when I go back, I will try to verify.
All right. Thank you. So we would also want the reports that you reviewed, and the asset disposal, and the budgets that we are presented to you for 2020 and 2021.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor, you may proceed.
Now, on page 7.
Yes, page 7.
Yes, with respect to the total procurement proceedings and their values. Why is the table not filled? Because just below the table, you have indicated that there were 505 transactions representing the population of transactions provided by the procuring council, as indicated above. So I had thought, because normally you will repeat this table in subsequent pages, but when I looked at the other table that you have highlighted on page 18, where you have the total number and value of procurement methods for the year 2020 and the subsequent table for the year 2021, when I add the numbers, I could not have 505 transactions. So I was thinking that maybe those ones that are being filled, the numbers would tally. So that will now prompt me to ask as to why this table was not filled. If you look at it, you will see open international tender, open national tender, two-state tendering, request for proposal, district tendering, and single sourcing, and RFQ. These are all 00000. Do you see it?
Maybe I am looking at a different document, because
The 7th page.
page 7.
Page 7.
Sorry.
Are you there?
Yes, but what I have on my page 7 is a different thing. The table that I have on page 7, the
Yes.
document that I have, is completed.
Okay, just give us the figures, because the one that I have is not completed.
I have,
Council, can you show him the one you have?
Yes.
Because that is a copy of the admitted document.
Yes. Can you confirm whether that is the same one?
yes, that is what I'm trying to confirm. Okay, now, it's okay, I've seen it. Yes.
Is it the same as the one you
Yes,
submitted?
it's the same as this other one. The other one that I am looking at is a different submission.
So the one you have, is the table filled?
No, the table is not complete.
It's not complete. Okay, thank you. And you will see just below that it states that there were 505 transactions. Is that correct?
Yes, 505 transactions.
Yes. So where does this 505 transactions come from? Because I can't see a table to do the calculation. Like I indicated earlier, I was with the view that probably maybe in the subsequent tables, because sometimes you will repeat these tables in the review process. But then when I looked at page 18, can you please go to page 18? Page 18.
Yes, page 18.
Yes, the table for 2020 will give us 446 for single sourcing and a value of $25,959,001.62 bottles. Do you see it?
Yes.
And the request for quotation is 22 transactions. That is $4,961,155. If you add the total number of transactions, my calculation will have us at 468.
68. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So we will not have the 505 for 2020. So if you go to the next table for 2021, you will see we have 436 transactions for single sourcing at the value of $1,469,800.23 bottles. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And for request for quotation, there were just 4 transactions. The amount is $162,020. If you add the number of transactions, probably it will give us 440. Am I correct? 436 for single sourcing and 4 for RFQ. That will give us a total number of transactions to be 440.
440, yes.
So still we don't have the 505 transactions for any of the, if you take them individually, we wouldn't have them, and if you add them up as well, it will be way above 505,000. Do you have an explanation as to where you have these 505 transactions for the year under review?
Actually, Council, like I said earlier, we accept that we have so many irregularities. Now, when I looked at this, I even detected it yesterday, but when I looked at it, I believe that the order table for 2019 was, of course, we talked about the copy and paste.
Yes.
That the information from the 2019 was copied and pasted. And like I said, you can copy and paste, but at the end of the day, you must also adjust. I want to believe that it was copied, pasted, but then the adjustment was not corrected, because the 505 is the same number of transactions that we have in the 2019 table. So we accept as an authority that there are a lot of irregularities, as we have already highlighted. And of course, we will ensure that the issues are taken care of and addressed, and also communicate to those institutions concerned.
Now, Mr. Sanyang, these reports you submitted to us are reports that you have circulated to other sister institutions.
Right.
That is your stakeholders. And we have admitted these documents in evidence. And we just want to state that we don't believe, the Commission doesn't believe that your institution sat over these reports to do a review of what the technical team got on the ground. And that is a fact. Am I correct?
Well, the way we do it,
No, just answer my question, because if the authority had a supervisory role over the technical unit to have a final review of this report, you wouldn't have a report that has a lot of errors and omissions. Am I not correct?
Correct.
Yes, so I am saying that the authority did not review these reports. They just accepted what the reviewers have presented, and you submitted it to your stakeholders, and that's it. Because if senior managers had access and reviewed these documents, they would have detected the mistakes and would have corrected it before it left your office. Is that not correct?
Okay, agreed.
Thank you. Yes, Council. Proceed.
Please
Now, just to conclude. So, it is now your evidence that you cannot ascertain what is contained in this paragraph, which refers to the fact that the reviewers reviewed 505 transactions.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Council.
Please turn to page 8. I know it must be very uncomfortable for you when there is evidence of negligence of official duties. It will be more damning if the specific findings are in fact contradictory. But then, just to write a simple report, I believe even with your wordings, your sentences, it's just very embarrassing. Not to you, but in particular, but the institution, GPPA, really, to have really basic errors in relation to report writing. But then, I'm sure maybe your DG will come, probably the last day or so. He's not been here for a while now, so we'll discuss these issues as well. But on page 8, you again notice that the SPU was under the finance department. Do you see that? On a non-compliance.
Page 8.
Yes.
Page 8. Can you please check? It's
Do you
page
see?
8 or page 18?
Page 8.
8.
Page 8 was only 18 was only a reference to the table that we have on page 7. I was just trying to compare and contrast to show him that the numbers 505 wouldn't still add up if you in the subsequent, because in the report they will give us the tables time and again, sometimes twice, but then the numbers didn't add up still. So on page 8, are you there?
Page 8, yes.
Yes.
So again, the SPU is under the finance department.
Please,
Is that correct?
Council, can you refer us to the specific paragraph that you are looking
On a non-compliance.
under page 8?
Yes, non-compliance.
I'm not seeing-
What we have is chapter 2, mandate role council of. That's what we have.
Mandate of?
It's chapter 2. Page 8 is on the chapter 2.
Yes.
You have the mandate,
Yes.
vision, mission statement,
You have
Council
a
structure,
council
non-compliance.
structure, and findings. Then you have the compliance and non-compliance on page 9.
Well, I have it on page 8.
Page 8. Oh.
Yes.
So you are looking at the non-compliance?
Yes, the non-compliance
Okay, we have it on page 9.
on 9. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me read so that you can compare whether they're the same.
Yes.
So for the non-compliance, you said that we further observed that the procurement unit was under the finance department. And for the findings, you said that the team was not provided the organogram of the council to ascertain the independence of the procurement unit. Do you see it? Is that the same with what you have on page 9?
Yeah, it's not the same, because what we have is at page 9 we have the non-compliance, and then you have the implications and recommendations and the management response. And on page 8, that is where we have the findings that you have read.
Well, I have it differently.
Okay.
I have chapter 2 on page 7 at the tail end,
Okay.
and then where you have mandate, role of council of Mansa Congo Area Council. And then on page 8, I have the mandate of MKAC, vision, mission statement, council structure, findings, compliance, and non-compliance. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So first, they don't have an organogram. Are you in line with what I have?
That is the non-compliance.
Yes. The first, the non-compliance, finance department controls the SPU. They control procurement.
What I have here is, of course, different. I'm not in line with you. What I have on the non-compliance is like, we further observed that the procurement unit was under the finance department.
Yes.
And then we have the implications.
Yes.
One, procurement unit being under the finance department may
lead to conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
Yes.
Two, there is a risk that the procurement unit may not be independent in their operations. And the last one is the procurement may be delayed.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
in relation to having the SPU under the finance department, we had already said that is highly irregular and highly unlawful. So, and that because it contravenes the act. Yes. And then the reason being, again, the implications are that there may be conflict of interest where you have the same individual raising vouchers or purchase orders, and also conducting procurement activities and approving the finance aspect of it. That will definitely be a conflict of interest, right?
Yes.
And so the independence in the operation of the SPU will highly be compromised. Is that correct?
Right.
So on page 10, can you turn to page 10? With respect to the function of the accounting officer, do we have it on page 10?
Yes.
Yes. So the accounting officer being the CEO, what are the non-compliant issues on page 10?
The accounting officer did not appoint members of the inspection and acceptance committee as required by GPPR section 62,
Yes.
63, 64, 66, and so on. The accounting officer did not ensure that procuring organizations prepare a disposal plan.
Yes.
The accounting officer does not ensure that the procuring organization or the procuring council properly documents procurement proceedings and manage records in accordance with the Act, Section 35(2).
Yes. Now, turn to page 12. With respect to the functions of the specialized procurement unit. Now, the specialized procurement unit for Manzikoko Area Council, they don't fill the forms, they don't ensure that the forms are administered correctly.
Yes.
The second point is they do not coordinate the evaluation of quotations received from the suppliers.
Yeah.
That the SPU does not ensure that the suppliers sign the purchase order prepared. We have talked about the importance of signing these orders.
Right.
And they don't include the evaluation criteria in societization of documentation. That the SPU does not liaise with the authority on matters relating to the disposal of assets. That the head of the SPU does not act as the secretary to the contracts committee. And I believe this, for this point, again, it is a mandatory requirement.
Right.
Is that not correct?
Correct.
But then in this case, you don't even have a formal contracts committee in the first place.
Right.
And there are no proper filing system with respect to procurement proceedings.
Right.
What are the implications of these rules being violated?
Transparency of the procurement process could be compromised.
Yes.
Non-signing of the purchase order by suppliers may lead to potential conflict, especially if the supplier default in his duties under the contract.
Yes.
Unreported procurement is imminent.
Yes.
The absence of evaluation criteria may lead to wrong award decisions since there are no definitive basis for award. And without the use of GPPA forms can lead to misprocurement.
Now, turn to page 13.
I just want to highlight to Mr. Sanyang that at page 10, under the non-compliance unit, you've made reference to the rules, and you've made mention of section 62, section 62, 63, 64, 66, and 67. And all these sections are dealing with, and they are dealing with entirely different issues. You know, starting from 62, you can see that from the rules, it is about reception. 62 is about reception and security of bids, and not about inspection and acceptance. So for for the whole series of sections that you've mentioned are wrong sections that are mentioned under point 1 under non-compliance. And I would want you to explain to us, for our understanding, where does the SPU, where do you situate the SPU? And is it provided for in either the Act or the regulation? Because the reason I am asking, I have seen some inconsistency in your recommendations. So can you, as a technician, explain to us where you think, as a specialist, the SPU should be situated and it can do its job independent of interference?
Our recommendation is like the SPU should be answerable directly to the head of the institution.
That is?
The CEO in this case.
But do you agree with me that in your reports, sometimes you recommend that it should be under the finance officer?
If that is the case, it comes to the same irregularity that we are talking about. But our recommendation has been to be independent. They cannot be under the finance director because, like we discussed on the previous days, now being under finance means there will be no segregation of duties.
But
because
in your
payment,
payment is contained in the 2019 report, where it is recommended in your recommendations that it should be under the accounting officer.
Accounting officer in this case is the head of the institution, not the accountant.
And in another instant, in the other reports, in another report, in another council, you said it should be under the director of finance.
If that is the case, like I said, it must be an inconsistency, and if I would have underlined it if I see it, because it's inconsistent.
It's in your report.
We always recommend that the SPU comes on directly or is answerable directly to the head of the institution or the accounting officer to segregate duties.
Now, in one of your recommendations, we have seen that you have said that it is wrong for the vice chair or even the chair to chair the contracts committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
now I just want to be clear as to you said the SPU should be under the CEO.
Correct.
So would there be no interference? Would there be no possibility of conflict of interest if the SPU is directly answerable to the CEO?
Now, in this case, what we are seeing is like you have the SPU who will be responsible for collecting quotations and the like, and you have the head of the institution who will work very closely with the SPU. Now, when it comes to payment, you have a complete different section, which using their expertise and the like, if things are not done right, payment will not be effected. Rather than having all of them under the SPU, the SPU and the finance all together, so that when vouchers are raised, quotations collected, evaluated by the same department, recommendations are made, and then vouchers will be drawn by the same department, and the checks will be drawn by the same department.
Yes, Mr. Sanyang, but you have made it clear to this commission that there is a need to set up an SPU unit.
Right.
So what is the purport of setting up an SPU unit if it is not intended to be independent, such that because you have your forms and procedures, after they have completed everything that they needed to complete, they just hand over to the relevant section or department that needs to take the further step. So why should it be answerable to the CEO?
Now, when we talk about being answerable to the CEO, the fact that they are answerable to the CEO because is the head of the institution entirely, and of course, given by the provisions of the Act, the accounting officer is held responsible for whatever goes wrong or whatever goes right. Now, yes, they will be called independent, but don't also forget that according to the Act, that same SPU should be established by the CEO. So you can call them to be independent, but having a head for the whole institution, whatever the case may be, even if they are independent, they must be answerable to the same to the CEO.
Yes, maybe we are interpreting answerable in different contexts, but my understanding is that based on the regulations and the legislation, you should have a unit which should take responsibility when it comes to procurement and do the processes, and then hand over to the necessary to the executing units, which are the finance department, to complete the process. So that does not necessarily vitiate the fact that they must answer to the CEO, who is the admin officer of the council. Invariably, an institution has to have a manager, and the manager is the CEO. So, but if you say the unit should be answerable, it means before they take any action, they must seek authorization, permission, or whatever to do their job.
Okay. Right.
That is my difficulty. That is why I wanted you to explain. And if it is provided for in the legislation, you highlight to us or in the regulation to say this is where it should be situated. That is, the SPU should be under this particular department, or it should stand alone, or it should be a unit that is independent of interference from all the other units.
Actually, all what we have in the Act is that the head of the institution should establish an SPU, and the authority feels that because they are he or she is responsible for the establishment, so the unit can be directly under, is more suited under the CEO than being under the head of finance.
Okay,
Yes.
we will take that. All right, thank you. Yes, Council.
Yes, on page 13.
Page 30.
Yes, 13.
Yes, page 13.
We see, with respect to the functions of the Contracts Committee, that members of the Contracts Committee we have been appointed verbally. Is that correct?
Functions of the
Contracts Committee. That the appointments were done verbally. Under the findings, do you see it?
I have functions of the, that's page 11.
On page 13, where you have the Contracts Committee members for the year under review.
Contracts Committee members for the year under review. Yes, I have a table that shows, yes, on top, there is the functions of the Contracts Committee. I have seen it.
Yes. Now, the review team informed that the following members have been appointed verbally to be members of the Contracts Committee. They did not provide any formal appointments of the Contracts Committee as required in this section 47, 3, and 18, 2. Do you see it?
I have seen functions of the Contracts Committee, and under it I have findings where
Yes.
there is evidence to indicate that the PO has established a Contracts Committee in accordance with GPPA Amendment Act, Section 47, 3A, and so on. However, the review team was informed that the following members have been, appointed verbally.
Who are the members of the Contracts Committee?
The members
As per the table, yes.
include Mr. C.D. Ture,
Yes.
who is a member, and he is the Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Baijibi Salah, who is a member, and he is the Director of Finance. Mr. Buba Trawale. Now, the title is not indicated, but he is the Procurement Officer. And you have the qualifications. Then you have Mr. Ibrahim Asedili, who is a member. And finally, you have Alimamo Sise, who is the chairman of the, I think, of the Contracts Committee in this case.
Very well. Now turn to page 16, where you have the functions of the Evaluation Committee.
Page 16, functions of the Evaluation Committee.
Yes. For the year under review, there is no established Evaluation Committee as required by law.
You are reading from where?
Page 16, functions of the Evaluation Committee.
Yes.
Is there an Evaluation Committee as with respect to the findings on page 16?
The Mansakonko Area Council has not established evaluation committee as required by the Act, Section 47.3. and 49. So they don't have.
What are the implications if you don't have an evaluation committee?
There is no evidence of evaluation report by the contrast committee and no indication that individual scores were awarded by each evaluator or findings, or ranking for the quotations received as per the regulation 62, 63, and so on. The authority has not established the evaluation committee as required as per the regulation 62, 63, 64, and so on.
So they don't have an evaluation committee, and if you turn to page 17, there is no committee to inspect the goods or items being delivered.
Non-compliance. The authority has not established the examination and receipt committees as, yes, stipulated by GPPR.
Now, on page 18, we have the total procurement transactions for the years under review, 2020 and 2021. For 2020, we have the number of, there were no open international tender. Is that correct?
Right.
No open national tender.
Right.
Two-state tendering was 0. Request for proposal 0. Restricted tendering 0. But
Yes.
for single sourcing, we have 446 transactions.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
At a value of 25,959,001.62 buttons. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes.
And for RFQ, there are 22 transactions at an amount of $4,961,155.
Yes.
So the total value of transactions for the year 2020 is $30,920,156.62 buttons.
Right.
And in all or many of these transactions, there was a total disregard of the requirements to follow in relation to procurement, whether it is through single sourcing or RFQ or through tender of whichever form. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now for 2021, again, 0 open international tender. Open national tender is 0. Two-state tendering is 0. Request for proposal, same, nil. And 0 for restricted tendering. But there were 436 transactions for single sourcing and 4 requests for quotation. For single sourcing, the amount is $1,409,800.23 buttons. And for request for quotation, $162,020. The total value is $1,631,820 and 23 buttons. Do you see it? Now, can you turn to the next page with respect to the analysis of the procurement transactions under review?
Yes.
Now, if you read, it said, an analysis of the procurement transactions under various procurement methods indicates that most of the PO's procurement were carried out through request for quotation procurement method at a value of not available.
The value should have been there, yeah.
All of which has been approved by the contracts committee in line with the section 49. From the documents presented for reviews, we also observed some of the transactions, such as procurement of 655 bags of 25 kilograms of rice was procured at an amount of $425,750 to a supplier called Nemasu Enterprise. So, for the analysis of the table, do we have a correct analysis of the table? Because as far as your analysis is concerned, that's GPPA, the request for quotation seems to be the dominant method of procurement for the years under review 2020 and 2021. Is that correct as per the analysis? Is that what they are saying?
As per the table,
No, let's first see the analysis. Is the analysis saying, am I correct to say that you are saying in your analysis of the transactions that the request for quotation is the dominant method of procurement?
yes, that is what is indicated in the analysis.
Yes, even though they will say that RFQ is the most method used, but the value is not available. But again, going by the table for 2020, single sourcing and request for quotations were the only methods used. Is that correct?
Correct.
Which one is the dominant method?
Single source.
In fact, by far,
Yes.
because single sourcing is 446 transactions.
436.
446 transactions for single sourcing. And you only have 22 transactions for request for quotation. And for 2021, you have 436 transactions, and you only have 4 transactions for request for quotation. But your institution gives us an analysis of that was totally wrong. It appears as if request for quotation is the dominant method of procurement. Do you see it?
Yes.
And again, not only is that part incorrect, because we have proof with respect to the table that single sourcing throughout is, in fact, in all the area councils, is the dominant method of procurement. Now you have the other paragraph saying that, or the other line saying that all of these transactions has been approved by the contracts committee in line with the relevant law, section 49C of the Act. But if you look at the findings, you will see none of the transactions. In fact, you don't even have minutes of contracts committee.
Committees, yeah.
So if you don't have the minutes, you don't have evidence of approval. Is that not the case?
Right.
Now, this amount, where you said that procurement of 655 bags of 25 kilograms of rice was procured at an amount of $425,750 to a supplier called Nemasu Enterprise. Maybe the subsequent specific findings will reveal whether due process was followed or not. So we will skip that for now. Let's look at the records keeping of the procurement activities. What are the? Yeah.
Let me just refer. If you look at page 32, Council, what is contained on that page with respect to the procurement of goods is that there is an amount of 601,900, and the awarded contractor was Nemasu Enterprise. The method used was single source, but it did not indicate what sort of goods were procured by the council. So if you cross-reference that to what is contained in page 19, you could ask him to tell us more about that.
Yes, exactly, because just as Chair has, as you have highlighted, identified page 32, you will see that they said the procurement of provisions, but then in fact, even though the contractor is the same, but the amount here is 601,900, and what they have on page 19 is 425,000, but all from the same supplier. So, as Chair has clearly advised, it will appear as if it is 2 transactions.
Yes.
Yes, because for page 32, even though from the same supplier, but the amount is significantly higher, it's $601,900. procurement of provisions. For page 19, they are saying they have also observed a particular procurement conducted from the same supplier, but the amount is $425,750 again. So, yes, we will now discuss that subsequently. So please take note of the two. Are you following what we're saying?
Yes, I'm following, but I just want to say that I'm not sure whether this will also appear in the specific.
That's why I said
special these things.
That's why I said we will note that the chairperson has rightly brought our attention to page 32.
Okay.
So
it's because I haven't seen
exactly
it reflected
anywhere
in the specific areas that they treat individual services and goods.
Yes.
You know, in those pages I haven't seen it.
Yes.
There.
And going by that, then it will indicate that there are two transactions. So we will come to that, sir. So on page 13 still, what are the findings?
Page 13.
Yes. That the specialized procurement unit should ensure all procurement activities are filed either in procurement method or monthly transaction as dictated in Gambia Public Procurement Authority Act 2014. Now, non-compliance, the PO has maintained a comprehensive and individual file for each procurement activity. However, the entire procurement files reviewed are incomplete. For some files, when contravenes of GPPA Section 35, there are, I don't know who writes these reports, but there are no receipts and delivery notes. And in some instances, no GPPA form, no goods received notes attached in the procurement file, notwithstanding the files are marked with relevant PV numbers. So again, even though you have a filing system and records keeping, but none of these files were complete. Is that correct?
Correct.
So yes, so now you have more or less like empty or incomplete files for these transactions. You will see the numbers there, the PV numbers there, but they are really not in any way complete in relation to how it should be done. And the implications are proper assessment of procurement records is a challenge. The absence of delivery note from the suppliers may lead to wrong quantity of supply, and the lack of receipts in the procurement file may imply that the procurement is not complete. Now, the first point on the implication, where you said proper assessment of procurement records is a challenge. What does that mean? On page 19. May I perhaps suggest that maybe subsequently you may print
page 19.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Implications. Proper assessment of procurement records is a challenge. Now, if you look at the report, they are indicating that.
I will hand you the, Madam Chair, the exhibit for Mansakongo Area Council, LGC GPPA/MAC/009, so that he will properly follow in relation to what we have already tendered.
Yes, Council, you can give him the specific report that we are dealing with.
Yes.
Yes.
Please, can you hand him the year 2020 and 2021 report? Please, on page 19.
Yes, on page 19.
Yes.
The implications.
Yes, the first one. Proper assessment of procurement record is a challenge.
Now, if we look at the findings there, it's
Yes.
indicated that the documentation and the recording is inaccurate, is not
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Now, if proper documents are not submitted and they are not correct, it's going to be now the proper okay.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, allow me to turn to the
Page 19.
Now, if you look at the write-up on the findings,
Yes.
clearly indicated that the documentation is not correct, and so on. So if that is the case, it's going to be very difficult to do a correct assessment of the procurement records when the records that are submitted are not correct.
Now, will that also possibly mean that there may be some procurement transactions or alleged procurement transactions that cannot in fact be traced at all?
Yes, it may also suggest that some transactions are conducted, but the documentation was not presented for review.
Yes. So you only deal with the files and the documentation that you have been presented with.
Yes,
But then you cannot ascertain whether in fact that list will be the complete list of transactions.
correct.
The reason why I said that is if you look at the table on page 18, you will see that the total value of transactions for the year 2020 is $30,920,156.62 buttons. But then when you went back for 2021, the documentation with respect to the procurement activities conducted for 2021 gives you a total value of $1,631,820.23 buttons. So there was a vast difference of more than $28 million. So this will only suggest, and if you raise this concern, that on page 19, that accessing the records or for the purpose of assessing them is really a challenge. Do you see that?
Yes,
And where you have the vice chairman being the chairman or head of the contracts committee, which you have said is really it is the height of conflict of interest. So what does that tell you when you have this really significant difference in the value of procurement from 2020 to 2021?
actually, it may suggest that one, there may be a huge difference in their expenditure, but then it may also is not also impossible. It's not also impossible.
At all. Not possible in any way. We are looking at that in relation to your findings. Do you understand that? It is also possible that you were not presented with some of the procurement transactions, so that you can only deal with the files that you are given. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it's a
Exactly.
possibility.
Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. If a particular year, the numbers may vary, 5 million, 10 million, but substantially about more than $28 million. So why is there the significant difference from one year to the subsequent year? It doesn't make sense. Or did it make sense to you?
Now, what I'm saying is, yes, there are irregularities, and we've noted that obviously documentation and so on is not correct. That is noted. But what I am saying is, it is not something that is impossible. An institution can budget for something, and then probably you have a very major contract like construction and the like, which may be of millions, and then the following year you may not have something like that. So the fact that the documentation is not correct, but this is also something which is possible. But then I'm not saying that it is the
No,
case.
I agree. If, let's assume I only raised that in all the procurement that we reviewed, you will see that there will be differences in the value, the total value for every year. Naturally, you cannot have, or you will hardly have 40 million being spent in 2020, exactly 40 million in 2021, exactly 40 million in 2023. That will also probably raise concerns.
Yeah.
But in Mansa Kongo Area Council, where you have an institution wherein they follow all the rules, all the regulation, the committees are in place, the inspection committee, the evaluation committee are in place, the purchase orders are raised accordingly and rightly so. There's an inspection team, there's independence and transparency in procurement being conducted on a timely basis. Then of course, there will be evidence to back any transaction. So if you have a project for 40 million in a particular year, or let's say 100 million, you will see all the traces, all the piece of evidence to back that transaction, and so that will logically explain why the difference. So no one will ask the question. But in Mansa Kongo Area Council, like we have seen in Basse and other area councils, you don't even have evidence of sometimes even purchase orders. You don't even know where, in fact, whether these monies are even being spent where they are supposed to be spent. So that there is no evidence whatsoever of following due process in any form. No evaluation committee, no purchase order, no delivery receipt or note, no inspections team. All you are presented with is the fact that in some cases there is a purchase order and we spent 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 on so and so. Everything is on paper. Nothing to prove and show you that in fact, yes, what they are saying is being backed up. So if you have these numbers significantly, to me it will always suggest one thing, that, and you are raising the issue of not accessing or not being given proper documentation or files. It can only mean one thing, in my mind, that you did not forward certain evidences to back certain transactions.
Correct.
Exactly.
Mr. Sanyang, the period under review, I believe this report was done, the 2020-2021, what was done when the review team went, collected the documents for 2020 and 2021. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to what council has said, would the budget of the council not have informed you as to the variance in the expenditure in terms of what they expended and what they did not expend?
Actually, if I could remember, the first day that we came here, they made mention of the ledger. Mm-hmm. So normally when
No, I'm not talking about ledger. What I'm saying is that I said part of the documents that you review is the budget of course, before you review any institution, you will ask for the budget. Yeah. And it's one of the principal documents that you first ask for when you do your reviews. Am I correct? Yes. So now what he is saying with respect to the huge difference in terms of transactions, in terms of money spent, I said, would the review team not have taken cue from the budget presented as to what they have expended on and what they did not expend on to qualify or to justify their expenditure? Would that not have shown?
Yes, if all the documents are presented.
No, what I mean is, would the budget not have given them an indication?
But here it is indicated that even there may not even be proper budgeting.
Okay, so in other words, you are saying the review team might not have been presented with a budget.
Exactly. That may be part of the documents that were not presented.
All right. Fair enough.
Madam Chair, it appears as if, in fact, your concerns are even worse than you can even imagine. I think that's what you're saying. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Now, on page 20, the procurement planning. Here you have an annual consolidated procurement plan for the period of under review. The CEO prepares and approves this consolidated procurement plan. That is for the year 2020 and 2021. But this was never approved by the relevant authority. If you look at non-compliance, do you see it?
Yes. Under non-compliance, the council made major adjustments in their procurement plan, but was not communicated to the authority as required by the Act and the regulation that is the procurement of vehicles. The key procurement processing steps, timings, and costings have not been incorporated in some ideas of the plan. Yes, but then going by the first point.
No, before you analyze, it is noted from the report that these major procurements are not reflected in the transactions and in the tables that you have provided in the report, right?
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Proceed.
Implications. Funds appropriated for specific items may not be used as budgeted. The objectives set forth in Section 3 of the Act may be defeated. Value for money may not be achieved if the procurement is not planned.
Now, under non-compliance, we have not seen the review team made mention of the vehicles that they have purchased, the process they adopted, and the cost involved. Why was that?
Well, I'm not sure, but they may appear in the specific findings. I'm not very sure. Maybe if I...
They are not in the specific findings. Mr. Sanyang, there is nothing in the specific findings that indicated that the council purchased vehicles, and how many vehicles, what was the cost, and what was the process adopted.
Okay.
So kindly provide us with that information from your authority. Council, you may proceed. Thank you.
Yes, so that is why where I was driving at, in relation to drawing your attention on the vast difference in the total value of procurement for the year 2020 and the year 2021. Do you understand?
Correct.
So that whilst in 2020 you have almost $31 million as a total value based on the evidences of procurement conducted for that year. In 2021, it appears you were not there was no adequate file to back certain transactions. So again, if you turn to the procurement planning, it shows you the addition or the supplementary budgeting or the supplementary addition to the procurement planning, which were never approved accordingly. They didn't follow due process. And so some transactions did occur which were not, which you probably were not given evidence of. Do you see that?
Yes.
So my worry is Sometimes when you go to conduct these reviews, and they tell you we purchased, let's say, 4 vehicles or 4 trucks or 10 laptops, and you don't have any evidence of that, do you still incorporate that in your report?
Supposed to, yes, because when they indicate things like that, obviously, maybe the first thing will be looking at the
Please speak to the microphone. The microphone.
The first thing would be verifying on the receipt and acceptance, and
Yes.
then physically verifying the items.
Now, my point is, example, instead of only having it highlighted in just one paragraph or one sentence, don't you think that this is what there is the need to have it properly dealt with, explained by the individuals rather than the report? For example, 4 vehicles were being purchased. There is no evidence whatsoever. You know, in some cases you may have 1 or 2 purchase orders being raised here and there, and they will show you evidence. But when there are traces of transactions but no evidence, it means the evidence collected on the ground would probably be more than 90% verbal. Don't you think you should explain that thoroughly in the report, that 4 vehicles were being purchased, but we don't have evidence of, maybe you may be seeing the vehicle, let's assume, but you don't even know how much they were being purchased for, because maybe for the individual conducting the purchase, they know they don't follow due process. They may have a kickback on those transactions, if even they are kind enough or nice enough to say it is costing 4 million, when in reality the vehicle is costing 2.5 million. That is when they are in their best mood or character. But in some cases, they don't even have, you don't even see evidence of the purchase item. The entire $4 million may be put in an individual's pocket or in an individual's account, personal account, and we have seen evidence of that in Basse, for example. So don't you think the report should elaborate more on some of these ghost transactions?
Counsel, you are right. That is why when the issue is mentioned by the Honorable Commissioner,
Yes.
I thought we'll find it under specific findings, but it is not there.
Yes.
So definitely a transaction like this should have been highlighted more.
More, exactly.
Specifically, yes.
That's why I call it a ghost transaction. So I will only say money being put in someone's pocket or someone's individual account, but then you don't see any evidence of those transactions. See, these are maybe you may not be in a position to report every violation. Probably no one expects you to report every violation. But GPPA, you should really do more. Some of these transactions, they really affect seriously the economy of the country. And if you don't report them accordingly, I wonder why your office should even exist in the first place. So let's turn to page 21. Pre-qualification and registration of suppliers. Do we need to even discuss this? Because for Mansa Conco, just like Basse, no rules were followed at all. It will only be a repetition. No rules were followed in Mansa Conco. They don't do any pre-qualification and registration of suppliers, do they?
They don't.
And when you highlighted this finding, did they respond to that?
No, there is no management response.
So what are the implications of not conducting pre-qualification and registration of suppliers?
There could be biasness in the identification of prospective suppliers. Some eligible suppliers may always be excluded in the procurement process, which compromise the objective of the Act. Non-registration with the authority is interpreted as a probable failure to pay taxes, since GRA tax clearance is a prerequisite for GPPA registration.
Now, the second finding under non-compliance, what is it?
Having gone through records presented for auditing, it was discovered that some contracts were awarded to suppliers who did not register with the authority at the time of award.
We discussed this on several occasions.
Right.
We said these are very, very, very serious violations. They cost the state significant financial loss. Is that not correct?
Correct.
But then, going by this report, I don't see, maybe it is the one I have, I don't see the list of the suppliers or contractors that were contracted for the years under review 2020 and 2021 that did not register with GPPA. Do you have it on the record on your on the one you are reviewing?
No, it's not the list of suppliers who were awarded, even though they were not registered with the authority at the time of contracting.
And why were
their
names not highlighted? Because we see that in the other reports, their names are clearly outlined, so that we know the individuals that we are dealing with, that are causing together, or in cohort with the area councils, causing the country's financial loss in relation to procurement. They don't pay tax, they don't pay registration fees, they don't pay their 10% tax deduction, and so on and so forth. Why don't we have it, the list?
Actually, we noted that the list is not provided and it should have been provided.
When you conduct procurement compliance review, in fact, how many years have you worked there?
With GPPA?
Yes.
Almost 15 years.
15 years, and I will believe you have you rose through the ranks.
Right.
So you have done. You have said you have worked in a technical team when you will travel, go on trek, and conduct these reviews. Have you done that by yourself?
Correct.
Will you accept that when you are to conduct these reviews and write your reports, it is very normal that individuals will be approached to perhaps be bribed so that certain things may not come up?
Well, not to my experience anyway.
That's not a possibility.
Not to my experience.
You have never been.
Not during our time anyway.
Not during your time. When is your time? You're still serving your time, sir. I don't understand when your time is.
Exactly. Whatever the case may be, we are responsible for whatever happens. But there was a time when we were at that position that we go out for trek, and we also involved in writing reports like this. So I have never come across where we are being sort of attempted, or there was an attempt for bribe or the like.
Have you ever had, during your 15 years of experience, any attempt to influence the decisions of this review? You've never heard of it?
Well, I'm not aware.
I don't know, because even I am thinking, serving this country for like half of the years you have served, even I can tell you these things, they happen on a timely basis in all the sectors where people want to influence decisions. And if I have to be fair to you, some of your inconsistencies, some of your poor report writing, probably not with respect to the findings, but having so many inconsistencies will sometimes explain. If it is being repeated time and again, repeated anomalies, it may suggest that there is maybe a certain instance wherein someone is trying to hide a certain fact. And if you don't do your job as management, review these things adequately and properly, it becomes just a business as usual. So let's now see the response of the management, if there is any. Mansekongo Area Council seem not to worry.
Sorry. Can you look at point 3?
Point 3.
Yes.
Can you, the third point is the procurement of suspended ceiling with accessories to supplier called Sadibu Drame, who was not registered with the authority, and the amount was 85,000, which was above the threshold of single source. And there was a single form attached to show the justification of that particular transaction. Now you have only one individual mentioned here, Sadibu Drame. Yes, please explain the third point to us.
Okay. All what this point is saying is that there was a contract awarded to Sadibu Drame for the procurement of suspended ceiling with accessories. Now, looking at the amount, which is $85,000, is far above the single source threshold. And as such, a different procurement method should have been used, and in this case, the most suitable procurement method should have been request for quotation, which is not the case. And above all, the forms were not attached. Only few forms were attached as their justification, which, of course, will not suffice, which is not enough for that particular transaction.
Very well.
Mr. Sanya, given what you have explained in terms of the prerequisites that a procuring unit should comply with in terms of single sourcing, is it not possible for the authority to infer from the goods and services that are being purchased as to the exigent nature of them being qualified to be procured under single source procurement method? The reason why I'm asking that is, if buying of ceiling fans are sourced through single source procurement, and they did not, and I know based on what you have written on your report, the 3 conditions are not met in this circumstance, because you can infer that these are ceiling fans. So probably they would not meet the 3 conditions that could have allowed them to use the single source method of procurement to procure the fans. So my question is, during the course of the review, is it not very straightforward for the reviewer to infer that most of these procurements that were done through single source were they did not meet any of the criteria of urgency and disaster, etc., to have warranted them to use single sourcing?
Actually, you are right.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Okay.
Yes. Now, let's discuss some very interesting findings on page 22. Yes. Are you there?
Yes.
I will also urge the commissioners to draw their attention on page 22. I'm not sure whether what I see is actually accurate, but then the findings with respect to specifications, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, so during review of the procurement proceedings, we observed that some transactions had technical specifications that were in accordance with the GPPA relevant sections. However, technical specifications were not generated in most of the requests for quotation and single source procurement. But that's one aspect of it. We know this is a prevailing issue. That's not where the interest is. Now, you gave examples. Procurement of provisions and borehole construction, and there was no procurement documentations for the construction, such as there was no Form 12, Form 041, and Form 012, and no contract committee minutes. Now, you have the other one. For the borehole, we don't have the amount here, but maybe we'll find it in the specific findings. But what draws my attention is there was a single source procurement of 655 bags of rice from the same supplier, and this Nema Su Enterprise. But the amount is $4 million for $225,000 is $750. I will take it again. $4,025,750 to supplier called Nema Su Enterprise, who was not registered with GPP. In fact, I'm not even interested with registration for now, because, like I said, you are supposed to provide us with a list of the contractors that did not register with GPPA. We have already discussed it earlier. But let me ask you, just for discussion's sake, what is the prevailing market price for a bag of rice in Gambia? On average. What is the most amount you can buy a bag of rice?
Currently?
Yes.
Right now, it depends on the quality, but then the average could be $1,700.
And at most? At most?
At most, maybe $2,000.
At most $2,000. Now, let's just do a little bit of calculation. It appears my calculation will be better than Commissioner Sila's calculation. So 655 bags of rice. I will take the maximum 655 bags of rice. If you multiply that by 2,000, how much will you have? You will have $1,310,000.
Yes, $1,330,000.
Now, let's multiply that for with let's say $3,000. How much? $1,965,000.
If you are looking for 4 million,
yeah, I'm looking for the 4 million.
3,000 is not even.
Yes, I am very interested. So I am trying to see, in fact, the unimaginable case scenario where a bag of rice will probably be $4,000. You still have $2,620,000. I am not sure whether it's making sense. So here you have 655 bags of rice, and this explains why, like I told you the last time, the non-compliance of these rules, they are not by mistake. We all do commit mistakes in our workplaces, don't we? All of us. I do. Even as we sit here, sometimes we make errors. But then when this disregard for the rules are not mere errors but intentional, it can only have one conclusion: fraudulent intention. There's no other way we can sugarcoat this or dress this or try to make it look nice, or maybe they just don't follow procedure. So no, it is intentional. So a bag of rice in Gambia, even if you make it $5,000, you will not even come close to $4,025,750.
And just to add on to what you are saying, this is a review in 2020, 2021.
Yes.
Council, for me personally, we agree with the inconsistencies and so on. That
this is not an inconsistency.
No, I'm coming.
Please come.
We agree with that. And of course, we can attribute that with capacity and so on. But when it comes to the facts,
exactly,
probably some of the facts may be omitted, like cited or noted by Honorable Commissioner. But then the facts remain the same, because this is clear that a bag of rice in the Gambia has never gone to that amount.
But let me interrupt you here for a second. Why is this particular? Because we have also raised some other issues that, in a very nice form, it is embedded in the report and not provided for. Because we see a consistency in highlighting the non-compliance for very small amounts of money, 2,000, 3,000. But when it comes to these huge amounts of money, is just embedded in the report in a very nice form. If you don't read it carefully, you cannot even notice that they have mentioned this thing there. So I am tempted to agree with counsel that, you understand, definitely something is fishy. Because if the facts are presented to you and you have provided it for, you've been given some information, whether verbal or through records, you should have simplified and provided it very clearly, as you do with other simpler, smaller amounts of money. That you clearly state what is the issue, which regulation they have violated, which provision of the act they have violated. But when it comes to these huge amounts of money, it's embedded in the report. And if you don't go through the report painstakingly, you will not even see it. So it is wrong. It is wrong not to highlight the issues that are wrong to enable the council to remedy the mistakes they are committing. And you are the supervising authority. Council, you may proceed.
Yes, so basically, let me go further on respect to your findings. The second paragraph, that under the year review, a payment of maintenance fee was made to Auto Care Engineering for servicing and repair of MKAC 1. That would be Mansakonko Area Council 1.
Yeah.
An amount of $165,000, and it was single sourced. Find attached the reference MKAC/CHO, and there you have the citation or reference number. The date on the trust bank check was the 5th day of the first month of the year 2022, and the date on the invoice sent by email was the 27th day, 27/10/2021. The procurement of 15 truncheons metal was also single sourced and above the threshold. This amount to 24,907.50 bottles from suppliers MBSJ. But with respect to the first transaction, you have highlighted that there is inconsistency with the evidence that the Mansakonko Area Council provided. Is that correct? That's how I understand it. That the date on the trust bank check to kind of establish payment was on the 5th,
On the
2022.
On the 5th of January 2022.
Yes.
And the date on the invoice sent by email was on the 27/10/2021.
Was what?
Yes,
Speak louder, please.
Right.
Louder, please.
Now, the date on the bank check,
yes,
was the 5th of January 2022, and the date on the invoice sent by email was on the 27th
October.
of October 2021.
Yes.
The procurement of, exactly.
So they gave you evidence of payment, not even procurement, but payment.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know what happened in these payments. These payments, they don't establish any due diligence or any abidance in relation to the laws laid down, that you can't establish that they have really followed due process. But then there was money being paid to a certain account. For example, if you have a check, unless the check is false, we all know the kickbacks that can happen. We have seen evidences of that, where you pay money and then you'll be given your own cut. But that's what you do when you don't follow due process, right? So now these two different dates, does that establish that in fact 165 was paid on a certain date? Because you have two dates here. Where was there the need to flag that? You have about 9 months gap between the invoice and the check.
Exactly. I think that is why it is been flagged, because if you look at the two dates, the gap is too much.
Very well. I was just informed that it's one. Madam Chair, do I proceed with the report or?
I believe that it's 1:06. It's convenient point to stop. We will rise for prayers and lunch, and we'll be back by 2:30. Thank you.
Thank you.